about this important initiative. During our presentation, we'll go through the following information points that you see here. We will discuss the National Standardization System. We'll discuss the role of the Standards Council of Canada. Then we'll talk about the Government of Canada's perspective on the work that the Standards Council is doing in digital credentials and digital trust services. After that, we will go through an overview of a four-phase project underway to develop standardization for digital credentials and digital trust services. We'll talk about a newly published national technical specification, how we plan to pilot that technical specification, and opportunities for you to be involved going forward. First of all, let me provide some context about the National Standardization System and the Standards Council of Canada. Since 1970, the Standards Council of Canada has been playing a critical role in Canada to enable and facilitate the use of standardization. That includes standards development and conformity assessment. The network of standards development organizations and conformity assessment bodies in Canada is what we refer to as the National Standardization System. And the Standards Council of Canada oversees those activities and operations through a number of roles and responsibilities that we play. First of all, we are Canada's national standards body. In that capacity, we support Canadian experts as they participate in international standards development. We coordinate all of the mirror committees, for example, to ISO and IEC technical committees where international standards are written. We're also Canada's national accreditation body. In that capacity, we assess standards development organizations in Canada and conformity assessment bodies and certification bodies such as testing laboratories to accredit them for the certification and testing that they carry out. And this ensures that certification in Canada follows the international best practices for certification and aligns the certificates themselves with such objectives as trade agreements and the like. So we oversee all of this standardization system, and it comprises those elements that I've mentioned. But what specifically is the Standards Council of Canada doing in the area of digital credentials and digital trust services? First of all, as I mentioned, we have our accreditation activities. Those ensure that certification bodies and standards development bodies are following best practice for consensus building and carrying out certification. So in this technology domain, we are providing services to the Government of Canada to establish a conformity assessment pathway for digital credentials and digital trust services. And that conformity assessment pathway is grounded in the Standards Council of Canada's accreditation process. What this means is that the technical requirements to which digital trust services will be certified, those technical requirements were developed under a robust and transparent consensus process. It also means that the certification bodies providing certificates are acting in a repeatable, transparent, and fair and internationally aligned process. So we are adding that accreditation foundation to the third-party trust structure for this technology. We are ensuring that, as I mentioned, the consensus process is being followed and the certification is robust and repeatable. So I'll pass it now to my colleague, Paul Jackson, to explain the Government of Canada's perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. So from our standpoint, I think one of our challenges from a Government of Canada perspective, there's all sorts of solutions out there. There's a bunch of different wallets. There's a bunch of different issuing and verifying services, trust registries. So Government of Canada has to it is a challenge for us to know which ones to trust, I think. So as part of this, the intention is to rely upon this process, to rely upon these certifications to help us know which to accept, say, when offering Government of Canada services, which wallets will we accept with providing to provide credentials, or which will we trust issuing credentials? What products can we trust? Let's say when procurement, if we're looking to procure issuing and verifying service, what products will meet the requirements? And so I think that's a big challenge for us, and that's where we're sponsoring this work, because this will make it much easier, rather than everyone having to go off and do a bunch of different assessments and try to figure out what meets requirements and whatnot. We can this provides an opportunity to rely upon accredited, independent, unbiased third-party conformity assessment bodies to do that assessment, much like products across the economy, like hockey helmets, bike helmets, transformer. This makes it much easier for us to know which ones we can trust. We can require that products be certified when deciding what could be used in federal jurisdiction, rather than us having to go off and assess every single product that's out there. So, but this is something that's, even though this is of interest to Government of Canada, this is something that we can see that can benefit entities across the economy. Because like, for instance, if there's a common set of standards, requirements that these products are meeting and are certified against, this makes it much easier for interoperability. Because if there's a common baseline that they all need to meet, then it's much easier for a user then to be able to choose a digital wallet and have the confidence it could be accepted across government jurisdictions, across different organizations throughout the economy. It also makes it easier to determine which ones to trust, like individuals, they don't have the capability of going out and assessing themselves each of these wallets. Which ones can I trust? Which ones will protect my information? Which ones are secure and privacy protecting? That much like these individuals don't have the ability to do that for hockey helmets and bike helmets. They don't have the ability to do these type of assessments. This makes it much easier, more trusted way for them to understand what they can use to protect their information, as the same as with the organizations across the economy, to know what they can accept and be comfortable issuing to, and even which products they can use themselves. But also with this interoperability, then, like I mentioned, it enables them to use it, have the confidence to be used across the board. It also gives the choice to organizations, so they can make informed choices. They can understand which ones meet a robust set of requirements, and then they can choose and then have confidence that this is something that could be accepted broadly. Another key part of this is we want this to be not only enable innovation, but we want fair competition. We want to have that common baseline, so Canadian and other organizations know where to invest to better align with the market needs within Canada, but also abroad. And certainly from a more of a Government of Canada standpoint, this work supports a lot of the work that we're doing right now with the innovation ecosystem, where we're testing through things like Innovative Solutions Canada and such, where we're testing and helping to mature a lot of the products of innovative companies within Canada, with the goal of trying to establish cloud infrastructure pieces and enabling services that then could benefit the broader economy. So a lot of this is working together towards a greater approach to help enable the adoption and use of digital credentials across Canada and with trading partners. Back to you, Justin.
So now, at this point, we will unpack for you what the project looks like that we are undergoing, and how the project itself is designed to build consensus and to be stepwise and iterative, so that the product, at the end of the day, this conformity assessment pathway, has the necessary input to serve a broad range of stakeholders, both public and private, as Paul explained. Starting back in late 2020, early 2021, the Standards Council was engaged by, at that time, Innovation, Science, and Economic Development to begin this work. And now, as Paul mentioned, that sponsorship of the project has moved to the Treasury Board, Secretariat. And the project was designed at that time, when the work began, the project was designed in 4 phases. The first phase involved the Standards Council of Canada carrying out a research activity through our proprietary standardization databases, as well as some databases that we contract to access, to identify Canadian and international standards and conformity assessment tools existing. From that research activity, we scoped out and defined the content of phases 2 to 4. Phase 2 involved, as phase 2 is actually wrapped up, it involved the national standardization system supporting the government of Canada by developing a technical specification for digital credentials and digital trust services. And we'll say more about the process by which that was developed and where you can access that. That phase 2 is wrapped up just a few weeks ago at the beginning of May with the publication of the technical specification. And now we plan to pilot that specification with conformity assessment bodies and product developers to learn about its impact on those markets, to learn about its impact on those technologies. After phase 3, another full criteria development cycle begins as part of phase 4. And that's where we take the learnings from the pilot and we take the national technical specification and we make the necessary changes and adjustments to ensure that learnings from the pilot are reflected at the end of the project in the final conformity assessment program. So the 4 phases are designed to build on each other and to ensure maximum consensus opportunity. I'll give you some more details on each phase at this point. As I mentioned, phase 1 was the research activity that it identified the standards landscape for this technology. And it involved identification of, in fact, thousands of potentially related standards and then policy analysis around those standards to understand where needs lay for the Canadian standardization system. And at that time, the primary sponsor and stakeholder was the Government of Canada. In phase 2, we reached out to the standardization system, to the network of SDOs in Canada, Standards Development Organizations, and we contracted an organization which was then called the CIO Strategy Council. It's now called the Digital Governance Council, to develop the technical specification needed for the conformity assessment pathway. That technical specification was written by a team of that we call a technical committee. It comprised 10 federal departments and agencies, representation from 10 federal departments and agencies, 8 provincial governments, government organizations from 5 provinces, 2 municipalities, and another 62 subject matter experts participated in that technical committee and observed or contributed to the writing of the technical specification. The specification was drafted several times from around May 2021 until January 2023. At that time, the CIO Strategy Council, then the Digital Governance Council, they released the document for public review from January 9th to February 3rd. And during that period, we had a very significant amount of engagement from the public. We received 290 comments from about 30 individuals or organizations, and they were from across Canada, those comments, and some even international organizations and companies engaged. So this is considered a very significant amount of input on a technical specification, a national technical specification, which speaks to the significance of the activity and to the power of the standardization system to build consensus and to draw comments from a range of stakeholders. We spent a lot of time dispositioning those comments, and the TS published in May of this year. And now I'll pass it over to Paul, who will walk you through the high-level details of what that technical specification contains.
Thank you, Justin. So for this, kind of the general approach that we're looking to take, like what was recognized by a lot of the people that were involved in this was there's not going to be one single technology framework or technology or credential format that was going to rule them all. There's a lot of people a lot of organizations working towards W3C verifiable credentials, just like there's many working towards the ISO mobile driving license, MDL. And that we didn't see that as something that's going to resolve quickly. And there's many different approaches and solutions. And so as part of that, recognizing that there's not going to be one to rule them all. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing that there's, because there's different needs, whether you're talking about it in individual individual credentials, or whether you're talking about supply chain or any number of different use cases. There are different technologies that may be more suitable to the different needs. So as part of this, we wanted to have something that could create a common baseline that would work across the various different technology frameworks and not pick just one, because different jurisdictions within Canada and even internationally are going to make different technology choices. And what's important is that we need a way to ensure that there's a common baseline for things such as security, privacy, user experience, and ensuring that there's common expectations. Same for interoperability as well. So this took a very technology framework agnostic approach, and intentionally so, to make sure that then we could have those common requirements that would apply regardless of technology framework or credential format. So this technical specification has four areas that's focused on. So it's intended to provide requirements for kind of the actual products that are involved in digital credential exchange. So one would be the issuer component. So this would be, say, an issuing service that can be used to issue a digital credential to, say, a wallet, so a holder component. And then that could also be used to, say, revoke or suspend. So this is much like you have physical credentials. This would be something where you can have an issuing body that hands over driver's licenses or whatever. It's similar here, that this would be a digital version that provides the product capabilities to be able to issue that credential to an individual and organization. There's also requirements with regards to the holder component, which could be a digital wallet, encrypted data vault, or something that an individual organization can use to hold their digital credentials and share them as needed to obtain services or engage in transactions. There's the third one, which is the verifier component. So these are the services that would provide the capabilities to request digital credentials from, say, a digital wallet or other type of holder component, and then be able to verify its authenticity. So verify that nothing has been tampered with, and to verify that who is the issuer and such. So that's a third component. And then there's this is not necessarily in all cases, but where more decentralized approaches, where they rely upon, say, a trust registry, then there's requirements for that trust registry. For instance, W3C verifiable credentials tends to rely on a digital trust registry. So then that was a fourth product that there's conformance requirements. So across this, there's a bunch of different requirements. I'm just going to give a kind of highlight of some of the types of requirements that are included. So there are quite a few privacy-related requirements. So a lot of this is focused on giving the control to the user. So the one with the holder or the wallet. So not only giving them the ability to control privacy and sharing settings, but also give them the control over the digital credential data, so that they can control what is actually shared. So for instance, that they have the ability to reject requests, or then to have choice in what they choose to disclose or share in response to requests. So a key part is making sure that the user is in control and it is the one that is authorizing what could be shared to a verifier. But and as part of this, there's also recommendation that the product should be helping the user to avoid doing that oversharing. Another part of this is the same thing with managing these credentials, like making sure that the user is actually, so the user or the holder is actually in control of the credentials themselves, so whether what to accept, to decline, or even to remove. So I think a big part of that is making sure that the holder is the one that is in control of this information and is able to make the decisions on where to share and to what extent. Next slide, please. And there's also the important part about security. So this is about, not only is it important that the user has the ability to control that information and determine what to share, it's also important that this information is protected, that it's not easily compromised, or people are able to get unauthorized access to this information. So that's where this relies upon a lot of the, so this, a lot what I have here as examples are existing government account requirements. And for instance, the cryptographic module validation program. So this is actually a partnership between the Canadian Center of Cybersecurity and the US National Institute of Science and Technology. It is a program that is used to assess and such certify cryptographic modules. So that's the encryption, things that are used for encryption, digital signatures and such, to make sure that they're robust and meet their requirements and do not have significant concerns. So this is a whole program, and we're actually just relying upon this existing program that defines what are the requirements for Canadian US federal government for cryptography requirements. Where possible, we're pointing off to existing requirements and trying to avoid creating new requirements. It's the same sort of thing with regards to how cryptographic requirements, algorithms are used. And even if you, with regards to the wallet or the holder component, making sure that there's sufficient protection to make sure that to prevent unauthorized access. And that's where using shared secrets or biometric authentication to prevent that access. So there's a whole series of requirements as well tied to ensuring that there's sufficient due diligence, appropriate security protections with these products to ensure that those that are trusting their information to be held in there, that it does have those necessary protections. But also there's other aspects. So with regards to, from a Canadian context, it's very important that we respect the official languages within Canada. So then these products should be providing support for at minimum both English and French, as well as take into account that we don't want to leave other people behind. We want to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to participate. So that's where there's a requirement for these products to also meet accessibility requirements. And so there's a lot of requirements in there across all 4 different components, focused on ensuring that these meet the requirements not only of the various jurisdictions, including the government of Canada, but also that they're there to protect those that are choosing to use these products. Right. Back to you, Justin.
Yes, thanks, Paul. And I realized I neglected to put in the link to the technical specification. So when we're done presenting, I will put a link to the specification itself is public and available for download for anybody to review it.
Okay, Justin, please put that in the chat, and I've got a notes to people, and what I'll do is I'll send it out to all attendees. Thanks.
Excellent. And I'll move quite quickly through the remaining slides so that there's time for discussion at the end. So as we mentioned, this technical specification is now to be piloted with a group of conformity assessment bodies, and willing technology developers, product owners, will put forward their products for pilot certification. And that pilot is now actually underway. We've begun onboarding all the participants. Certification activities have not actually begun, but we are getting close to that important milestone, which we hope to have underway by early July, end of June, early July. Products will actually be undergoing pilot certification to the technical specification. And the primary goal of the pilot is to develop learnings about the technical specification, how the criteria themselves can be assessed through a robust third-party conformity assessment process, and how those criteria impact technology owners and developers. After that pilot, we will launch a phase 4, where the learnings from the pilot will inform the development of a national standard of Canada that will form the basis of a robust full-scale conformity assessment program. And that's the pilot, that's the phase 4. The call out for participation in phase 4 will come in about October 2023. However, we will be setting up the technical committee a little bit before that, and then the call out will go to public for membership in that technical committee. So keep tuned to the Standards Council for that phase. So I've spoken a lot about the pilot, a little bit more detail about it here. There are 3 main participants in the pilot: conformity assessment bodies, product developers, and then a third category that we call the observation committee. This is an open forum for interested parties from across Canada and internationally to observe and learn about the pilot, to see summary level information about the experiences of product developers and conformity assessment bodies during the pilot. And that committee is open and can be joined at any time, and you can contact the Standards Council to join that committee. The pilot timeline, as I mentioned, we hope to see certification activities beginning in early July. Right now, we are engaged in onboarding the first, the participants, the conformity assessment bodies and the product developers. That's PD and CAB. And then we are getting into the actual experience will begin in July. Upcoming opportunities for members of the public, members of the government are as follows. You can join, as I mentioned, the observation committee and just reach out to the contact information that is provided at the end of this slide deck to learn about how to join the committee. We plan on that committee to meet once a month over the next 5 to 7 months. And as I said, review and comment on summary level information from the pilot experience and to comment on the lessons learned report that is generated from the pilot. Then the second opportunity you will hear about is the opportunity to participate in the technical committee that will receive the lessons learned report and draft the criteria, the final criteria that will go into the full-scale conformity assessment program. So right now we're working with a prototype conformity assessment program based on this technical specification, but at the end of the project in 2025, we will have a full-scale program based on a national standard of Canada, and you can participate in that technical committee to shape that full-scale program. So we're well along the way in this project, but there are many more opportunities to engage, participate, shape, and have your voice heard, and we welcome that engagement. Thank you very much for taking the time to hear us, and now we would welcome questions.
Okay, folks. Well, that was a great presentation. I don't see anything in the Q&A box. So if nobody else wants to ask questions, I will. Okay. If you're dealing with zero trust and you're looking at, for example, data as an asset within the organization, you want to have access through a policy decision point or PDP or broker. Are you addressing multi-level security, and are you addressing the metadata aspects and the authentication and basically the authorization and authentication aspects in this standard, or are you just looking at a network where only protected B or a network where only protected C, or where secret can go, and so on and so forth?
So I guess this is focused on the products themselves. So this is about how do you trust a product. So this complements, say, other work such as the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework, which deals with things like level of assurance and such. Okay. So where something like a Pan-Canadian Trust Framework, and I think whatever the standards that evolved from that, that's focused on how do you trust the organizations and their processes? How do I trust, say, organization X? They're putting out this credential. How do I trust that they have done the due diligence to ensure that the right person has got the information and they got the information right? And I think that's part of the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework. What this is focused on is, okay, so I trust the organization, but you're not dealing directly with the organization in this type of model. You're dealing with products. So it could be the organization would have an issuing service, and they'd be putting that the issuing a credential into a holder component, such as a digital wallet, and then you would have to be able to get that information from the wallet. You'd be going with a verifier component or a verifying service. So this is about these products that are absolutely required to do these type of transactions, to be able to do that sharing of information. How do you trust those products? How do you know that, for instance, that someone hasn't gone in and tampered with the credential while it's sitting in a digital wallet? How do you know that this is like who this came from? So I think it's focused more on, can you trust the products? And I think you're talking about then, like with regards to what's necessary for an organization to accept something. I think it's kind of a combination of things like the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework and the related standards, as well as this product this product certification standardization work. But I think there's also additional gaps regards to like semantic interoperability, like whether you talk about the data elements and such. So I think this is a piece of a larger spectrum of standards that are needed to understand this, but it does rely upon, for instance, the cryptography requirements that come out of the Canadian Centre of Cybersecurity and the U.S. National Institute of Science and Technology. So, as well as guidance on authentication and stuff like that. So I think it doesn't cover everything, and it was not intended to, but it does cover the critical piece of how do you trust the products that are key enabling services for these type of transactions? How do you trust the wallet? Which ones do you trust? How do you know what products you should be using for issuing and verifying digital credentials? So that's what this is focused on, but it's there. It complements many other pieces that deals with the broader things that you're talking about.
Okay, I think just a second here. Are there any plans to develop a zero trust standard or accreditation policy process for the government of Canada?
So you're talking about plans to develop a zero trust. So there is the so I'm not speaking specifically about zero trust, but I think as you're seeing, we're trying to build out these pieces so then we can, Government of Canada is going to intend, much like we do with much of our procurements, rely upon existing standards. So for instance, in this case, with procurement, we often rely upon things that are coming from out of ISO. So not answering specifically the zero trust thing, because that's kind of a different discussion, but we're trying to avoid a situation where it's a government of Canada only accreditation process. We want, like the government of Canada, typically when it comes to procurement and what we decide on what we accept in federal jurisdiction, is we try to rely upon international standards or common standards. And so that's where, with this case, the intention is the government of Canada that would rely upon this national technical specification and then ultimately the full-scale conformity assessment program. So in our procurement, we can say you must, if we're looking to procure, issuing, and verifying services, a minimum requirement is it must be certified against this. And so it's similar when it comes down to how do we know what organizations we may trust. When it comes to credentials, it's going to be kind of the same sort of idea that we like with the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework and such. So we're trying to avoid developing things that are unique to Government of Canada. We're trying to rely upon existing standards where possible, so that rather than having something unique to just the Government of Canada. So I think, yeah, so I think that's kind of our broader approach, is relying upon these common standards. Where they don't exist, then we work with the within Canada and internationally then to try to get those in place, so then we can rely upon it. So that's kind of our general approach to accreditation, certification, and standardization, is working with others and trying to avoid just a GC only, a Government of Canada only approach.
Okay, great. Does that address your question there, Martin? Okay, great. Okay, so that's done. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, well, I'd like to thank you very much, Justin and Paul, for the presentation. I'm sure people are going to be digesting this, because this is pretty essential with respect to to getting trust and understanding, whether products basically comply with the standards. I guess what I'm trying to do is, when you've got multiple networks and you've got 4 computers on your desk and 4 screens, it's just basically that the zero trust and the multi-level security is it's sort of been a pipe dream for the last 20, 30 years. But anyway, so one of these steps, especially with the access of open source intelligence, there has to be a way of trusting the data as being an asset that has to be trusted as well. Anyways, whatever, I'm looking very much forward to the standard. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to present. And I'll be putting the particulars of these 2 gentlemen on the site, so that if you want to get a hold of them after hours, or all of a sudden you come up with a question, that you can basically access them as required. Now, the accreditation at scc.ca, is that an email address, or is that a...
Yes,
Okay,
that's the
great.
primary email address by which you would reach out if you want to participate And if you have questions, feel free, Bob, to put up my email too, if that works, when you put our information on the website.
Okay,
People
great.
can reach out directly to me, but formally requests go through accreditation, and that gets, well, it comes to me just by another channel.
Okay, I'm just putting that down in the notes to folks so that they want to send email address. Okay, well, great. Well, thank you ever so much for your time. And like I said, it's great. We've got some other sessions coming up. We're just pausing for a little bit of a break so everybody can sort of get a bit of a coffee into them. In the afternoon, we've got Jonathan Joint from the Center for Cybersecurity. He's going to be providing on cybersecurity training and the Government of Canada. We've also got Caleb Walker and Greg Lane talking about upskilling people for the workforce of the future. And they'll be talking about the skills for the information age standard that's global at this point in time. We've got Jacques Trottier from Transport Canada talking about process mining case study in the Canadian government over at Transport. And also Naja Mary Al-Gharib from the University of Ottawa. She's a PhD candidate, and she'll be talking about process mining and robotic process automation and how that's basically going to work together. Then on the third stream, we've got Marina Van Kunet, who's going to be talking to us from TransAlta about operations management and cyber compliance in the energy sector. And then that'll be followed by Bruno Ouellette. He's a director of enterprise architecture for the Canadian Border Services Agency, and he'll be talking about digital transformation at CBSA using enterprise architecture. So I would appreciate, just keep that in mind. Bruno is a late addition to the syllabus, to the agenda. So please keep in mind, everything is going to be on the conference live. So basically, grab a cup of coffee, enjoy, and I'll see you after the session.